IVM.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you're all well and keeping safe. Today's podcast episode is very special because we have one of our listeners, Varsha from Singapore, join us and take us around a lesser-known gem in South India. So sit back and enjoy as we explore this small town in Tamil Nadu.
If you're a cricket fan, check out Edges and Sledges, India's favorite cricket podcast.
The podcast focuses on Indian cricket, the IPL, and has a ton of banter both on and off the field.
We talk about the week's biggest cricket stories with current and ex-international cricketers, coaches, or sometimes just between us.
And it's hosted by me, DJ.
Me, Varun.
And me, Ashwin.
New episodes release every week.
You can catch us on the IVM Podcast's website, app,
or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome Varsha to the Musafir Stories. Hi Varsha, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast and welcome.
Hi Varsha, welcome to the Musafir Stories.
Hi Faiza and Saif, thanks for having me here.
It's our pleasure, Varsha. Varsha, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little about yourself?
Okay, so I'm a copywriter based in Singapore and I write primarily for lifestyle and travel and mental health related topics. So today I'll be sharing on my travels. I travel very often and that's kind of my biggest call to fame. So I'll be sharing about one of my travel stories through a part of South India that most travelers don't really visit, Pollachi.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay,
And that was going to be my next question, where you're taking us to, but thank you for telling us. But like you said, Pollachi, right, is not something that easily rings a bell for a lot of travelers, especially if they're not from the southern part of India. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the place itself, its geographic orientation, where Pollachi is located, and also why one should visit Pollachi?
Yeah, and what made you think of Pollachi and go visit that place?
All right, I think I'll answer Faiza's question first.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up watching Tamil movies because when you live abroad, I think movies are your only way to connect with your home culture.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'd always watch all these Tamil movies that were shot in these very scenic villages, and my mom and I would always be like, "Where did they film this? Where did they film this?" And we'd go and search online, and many of these little villages where they film these movies, usually song sequences, were surrounding in Pollachi, like they were in Pollachi, surrounding Pollachi. So my mom and I would write down all these places to visit, and we couldn't even pronounce them. They were such long names, and we'd be like, okay, next year when we go to India, we're going to visit these places. So yeah, that's how we heard about Pollachi.
Wow. Okay, that's actually a really nice way to see in the movies and then decide that you're going to go there and visit that. And I really like your mother-daughter bonding. It's like touch wood. It sounds fun.
We travel together very often.
Oh, that's nice. I'm so happy for y'all. Okay.
Okay, so coming to Seth's question, Pollachi is located in the deep south of India. It borders Kerala on the east, and it's towards the west of Tamil Nadu, so near the western eastern Ghats where they meet. That's where Pollachi is. The nearest airport would be Coimbatore. And it's a very green, lush kind of place.
And just to add a little more to that, even I think Pollachi falls into the Coimbatore district, and it's around 40 kilometers, right, from 40 kilometers south from Coimbatore. So, Varsha, if one has to get to Pollachi, as you just mentioned that the closest airport is Coimbatore. From there, is it easy to get a cab to this place, or did you have to book it beforehand?
Cab, bus, like what's the
Yeah.
easiest way to access Pollachi?
Actually, there are many buses, cabs, all sorts of private transport.
Okay.
If I'm not wrong, there should be a train, but this is not something I'm very sure about. I'd need to confirm this. We took a bus,
Okay.
so we actually flew into Bangalore to visit our family,
Oh,
and then
nice.
from there we took a train to Coimbatore. It was an overnight train, and we arrived early in the morning at Coimbatore. And from there we took a bus. There are buses flying to Pollachi every few minutes
All right.
from the main bus junction,
Oh,
which
great.
actually is just very close to the Coimbatore railway station.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Varsha, for laying that out. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And what time of the year did you guys travel? And generally, what time of the year is it best to visit Pollachi?
The climate there is very mild, so there isn't a best time of the year per se, but I would probably avoid summers. We went there in June, July, end of June, beginning July, and we were also there in October.
Okay.
So both these seasons are very nice. October is much nicer because it tends to be cooler and everything is lush and
Yeah.
green. Yeah, so I mean it's a year-round destination, honestly.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, just to call out, I think for a lot of people, there is this little bit of a stigma, or I wouldn't say stigma. People usually just associate Tamil Nadu to Chennai, Madras, right, and the sea and the hot and humid climate. So this is definitely not that. Like you said at the beginning, it's closer to the Kerala side or the western part of Tamil Nadu and closer to the Western Ghats. So in terms of the climate, it's very, very mild and very salubrious. So that way around the year, it definitely is not as hot as some of the other parts of Tamil Nadu. But yeah, that October to Feb timeframe perhaps is a very nice time to visit the place. Also, just adding a little bit more, again, thanks to Wikipedia, this is not something I had to research a lot about, but Pollachi also, apparently the name, it stands for the land of natural wealth and prosperity. I won't try to break it up. It's Poil Vaichi or something like that. It's not my forte, so I'll leave that pronunciation part of it. But yeah, that's apparently what it stands for, and it's been ruled by a lot of these South Indian kingdoms and empires of the past, and primarily at the time of the Cholas, right? It was also known by this name of Mudikonda Chola Nallur. Probably butchering it again, but just thought I'll put this out there that this has been known in the past by a couple of different names as well, and there is a little bit of a backstory to the name Pollachi too. But yeah, really looking forward to this. Like I called out at the beginning, not something is usually a part of most of these run-of-the-mill itineraries, right? It's very, very offbeat in that sense, and that's why even we are excited to hear from you about your trip there, the things you saw around Pollachi, and what one can expect around Pollachi. So let's jump into that, Varsha, and talk a little bit more about your experience there. How long was this trip for? And yeah, let's start from there. How long was this trip for?
Okay, I think we were there for about 4 to 5 days, but considering that we've been there about two times, the first trip was 3 days and the second trip was 4 to 5 days. And we spent most of our time exploring the surrounding areas. I mean, there's not much to see in Pollachi town per se, but the surrounding areas are very nice. And you could easily spend about 4 to 5 days, unless you're going into the mountains, then I would probably suggest spending more time because there's a lot to see that side.
Okay. And with respect to the accommodation, Varsha, so you guys, I mean, from what I understand, you guys picked up Pollachi as your center point or the base, and you all kept traveling around. So, is that right?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. To book accommodation, was it done online, or can you just like go there and are hotels and all easily available?
Yeah, I mean, we never book online. We just go there and we figure it out.
Okay.
So we got down at Pollachi bus junction and then we walked a little. We asked a couple of shopkeepers to recommend some decent hotels, and they pointed us to this place called Ayer Hotel. Apparently, it's like for families and everything. And we just went there. We found a room for a reasonable rate, and it was quite clean also. So we just put up for the next few days over there.
Okay,
nice.
wonderful. Cool. So let's jump into your itinerary, 4 to 5 day itinerary of sorts, and let's start by exploring the Pollachi town itself, Varsha. Just what the town is known for, some unique characteristics of the town, or just things that you noticed in the town. Would you like to start taking us around?
Yeah, sure. So Pollachi town is very small and it's like any other Indian town. It's dusty, crowded, chaotic, right? And to be honest, it's more of an agricultural stopgap or like agricultural meeting point than anything else. So most of the action happens in the surroundings. But if you are in Pollachi town and you want to explore something, then I'd suggest heading to the jaggery market. So that's Asia's largest jaggery market, and you won't believe the amazing variety of jaggery. I didn't even know there were so many varieties of jaggery. And you can try different types of jaggery. There are jaggery byproducts and sweets and drinks made from jaggery. So that's a nice place to explore. And if you're into food, street food, then there is some decent street food in the by lanes and small alleys of the town. And so, just spend some time walking through the small streets. They have all these really traditional Tamil houses with we call the veranda thinnai. So these are these how do I put it? These really small houses with those brown color roofs, and inside they're made of wooden beams, like wooden houses. They're very traditional, old-timey houses, nice for some photo taking and Instagrammy shots. These are fast being replaced by modern day concrete houses, which, in my opinion, are very ugly. But
No
they don't have the
character.
charm. Yeah, absolutely. They don't have the charm of these rustic old houses, which are disappearing fast. So if you can get there, just take a look. Many of these small streets inside the houses, I'm sorry, not houses, inside the residential areas have these old-timey houses.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, the jaggery market, right? Asia's biggest jaggery market, like you said, that was something that stood out for me as well. And there exist different types of jaggeries, but I don't know. That's something definitely to check out. I think not something you find in every other town. So definitely do check that out. Along
Yeah,
with
Seth was excited about the jaggery because he's like a sweet tooth. And there was one of my friend who used to get a jaggery for us from his farm. So he was from Tamil Nadu as well. And
Okay.
so that was the first time I was seeing jaggery in a powdered form. And now we do see that in the market, but this is 3-4 years back where he would get us powdered jaggery and it would be so amazing. We would just eat it just like that, and then Seth would add it to his oats. So Seth was really excited when he got to know that, oh my God, Pollachi has like the largest jaggery market. Yeah, wonderful.
yeah, that's
Yeah, so you not only have sugarcane jaggery, which most jaggery is made of, you also have these palm-based jaggery.
Oh,
Uh, and that has a whole different taste and it looks different from sugarcane jaggery. So I think if you're really into sweets, then this is one place you should check out.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was one thing. And the other thing also I noticed, apparently Pollachi is famous for was the cattle market, right? That's something I heard about as well. A lot of cattle trading. There's a huge market for that. Mata Santai, I think that's what
Yes.
it's called as. And around the time of the festivals, primarily Pongal, this is a pretty huge deal, right? The cattle market. But another thing that I was also very, very surprised about finding out was the vanilla plantation. Also, Pollachi is very famous for, right? It's vanilla plantations are only in India. It's only based out of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and a few other regions in South India. And Pollachi is one of the leading producers. So that was also one of the unique things I found. So yeah, a lot of things and things related to agriculture, cattle, etc. Those are the things that kind of stood out for me. So really good to check those out, right? Like you said, usually
Yeah.
rustic village settings or small town settings like you would usually see. So a good opportunity to just walk around and capture and just take in some of these things, because a lot of us living in big cities, we don't get to encounter a lot of the things we touched upon. So definitely take your time to go around the town, the village, I would say.
Yeah, and speaking of vanilla, so Ooty is famous for its Ooty chocolates, right?
You're right.
It's a thing there. So all these homemade chocolates. So they source their vanilla beans from around the Coimbatore and Pollachi region.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Even me, I went down this rabbit hole yesterday of looking up on vanilla and what's going on. But apparently, almost 99% of the vanilla produced around the world is synthetic, right? It's not
Yeah.
natural, and only
Yeah.
that remaining 1%, in terms of the flavor, the taste, you could really say, and very limited number of places produce it. And yeah, it's good to find out that Pollachi and the southern part of India is one of it. Yeah, just like a lot of things you learn, I guess through travel and through places, you try and learn these other things also, right? Not necessarily
Absolutely.
a lot of interesting things to explore around the town. And there's also apparently a flower market that's also pretty old and pretty famous. So if you have the time, make sure you check out these different places. Anything more, anything that we missed out, Varsha, of significance that you'd like to call out?
With regards to Pollachi city, no, but if you're using Pollachi as a stopgap, do remember to visit the forest office, because that is where you can apply for permits and guides and accommodation if you're visiting the surrounding mountains and forest reserves.
Okay, that's a great call out. I think, yeah, especially if you need permits and things like that, it's best you keep that in mind and take care of it rather than leaving it last minute and your plans getting ruined. So definitely make note of that. Now, having spent some time in Pollachi town, going around the town and just little places of interest that we called out, where next would you like to take us to and explore?
Okay, so maybe I'll do it on a day by day basis. So on day two, we visited the surrounding villages. So these are also very paddy intensive areas. So paddy cultivation is pretty intensive here, and they grow different types of rice. So since Kerala is nearby, you can also see the Kerala varieties of rice like matta and red rice and all of that grown. And you have the Tamil Nadu varieties of rice like ponni and the other types of rice that they grow. I'm not very familiar with the names. Yeah, so this area is very green, it's well irrigated, there's a lot of water, and many of these small rivers they flow nearby. And of course you have Coimbatore and nearby Metupalayam, which has a dam. So there's a lot of agriculture related irrigation work going on in that area. It's basically very green. So we took a bus from Pollachi Junction and we just bought a ticket for one of the local villages. Like we'd asked the local people what villages they would recommend that we visit. And the first thing they told us was, why don't you visit this place called Sulakkal?
Okay.
So it's kind of out of the way, and it has a very old temple, a 15th century temple, and I think it's dedicated to the Hindu goddess Durga.
Okay.
And yeah, so we visited there. It was a very nice, like old-timey kind of village, these small thatch roof houses. Then these women clad in the Pollachi sari, they call achis. So the very traditional type of women, and they have this distinct way of speaking Tamil that's very sing-songy. And we visited this temple. It's really nice, and the area. Oh, I forgot to mention, the area is full of peacocks. So everywhere you walk, you'd hear the call of a peacock somewhere, and you would see a couple of feathers scattered here and there. And that was really amazing because that was the first time we had seen peacocks in the wild.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I mean, rest of the
interesting.
time we'd have to go to the Jurong Bird Park over here to
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and Sulakkal is this village, this hamlet. Is that how it's
Yeah,
called? Okay,
the name is called Sulakkal.
Sulakkal.
Sulakan.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and it took about almost 1 hour to get there. And I mean, buses flying to the villages are generally very crowded. So, especially in the morning hours, because everyone's going to school or college or work, and many of these farmers are bringing in their produce. So, it's pretty exotic for someone who lives in a city where buses are air conditioned and spacious and just so sparklingly clean to
Yeah.
see farmers bringing chickens, goats,
Yeah.
bananas, and whatnot into the bus and pile it on top of the bus also. So that was definitely really interesting for us to see. And yeah, we just alight at random places. And oh, if you ever get the chance to go that side, just stop at one of these hamlets and eat in one of those little stalls that these villages have. I tell you, it's the best food I've eaten.
Oh. Okay, what did you guys eat?
We had uttapam.
Uttapam.
Uttapam. Oh,
Okay.
yes. I love uttapam.
So this area is famous for coconut. So a lot of the food has coconut and coconut-based things in it, coconut oil, shredded coconut, broken coconut in it. So it was interesting because Tamil Nadu cuisine does not really use that much coconut. It's more of a Kerala thing. But yeah, this since the side borders Kerala so much, there's a lot of culinary influences.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely, and also to your point, right? Apparently, a lot of coconut plantations also in and around the Pollachi region,
Area,
right?
yeah.
So, popularly referred to as the coconut city. I don't know how true the source is, but apparently that's one of the things it's known as. So good. Yeah, it's great that you got to try out some of these local food stalls also. Yeah, it's not even like eateries where you go and sit, right? Basically, you just stand and eat, almost like these bel puri or vada pav type of stalls you might have in other bigger cities like Mumbai, for example. Those kinds of stalls, literally, right? You just stand and eat there.
Yeah, at most you'll have a broken wooden bench.
Yeah.
And the villagers very courteously offer it to you because they can tell you're not from
Yeah,
around that area.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, anything else to call out at Sulakal,
And
Varsha?
I mean, just take a walk around the area. It's very nice. And from time to time, you'll see little rabbits jumping into the hedges. And it's still a very rural, rustic area. So, and it's nice to see people living there. And the wildlife there, I don't know if you can call it wildlife. It's very exotic. It's the kind of things that you see in these old stories, parrots flying overhead, rabbits bounding in. There's a peacock somewhere, chickens running across the road. It's that kind of typical village life.
It sounds really nice.
Yeah, it's a very charming place.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's great. And where to next, Varsha? How much time do you spend here? Like perhaps a couple hours, I would say, or I mean, if you're visiting the temple, perhaps a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I mean, we spent about 2 hours there, then we hopped on to the next village and so on.
Okay.
And there was this particular village that I found very interesting. It's called Kinathukadavl. So the name actually means the door to a well.
Interesting.
So, I mean, I don't know how true this is, but apparently there used to be a very big well constructed in the Chora times. Okay, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding this well. There was gold and gemstones found there, but now it's all gone, and we found no trace of such a well. But the name has stuck, well door or door to the well, like that. So that was a very charming town as well. Then we returned to Pollachi city for the rest of the day, just to eat and wander around. And the next day was when we actually started venturing out even further.
Okay.
And we went near the hills. We went to this place called Setumadai. Actually, it's this long stretch of road called Anamalai Road, and it leads you to Top Slip and the Anamalai mountain range. And on the other side of this mountain range is Kerala. So, right, first thing we did was we went to this other temple that locals told us this. I mean, we're not very religious people, just saying, but this area is pretty predominantly Hindu, and it's very traditional. It's a very old timey place, right? So you have all these really old temples that side. So they told us to visit this temple called Masani Amman Temple. So in I don't know how familiar you are with Hindu temples, but in most of them the goddess Durga is seated or standing. Generally, she's seated.
Sure.
And in this one, she is in the form of a corpse. And I mean, in any religion, something dead is not considered auspicious. So it's pretty surprising that a goddess would be depicted in the form of a corpse. So the legend has it that Masani Amman was a girl who was living in the villages nearby, and there was when she was living there was this very cruel king or landlord who owned a very big mango orchard. And he grew some of the best mangoes in that area, and I'm not surprised because everywhere you can see mango trees, and the area is very well irrigated, so it's no surprise that the mangoes there would be good. And anyway, coming back to the point, this girl plucked a few mangoes from the orchard, and for that she was put to death by the king. And this kind of enraged the local people so much that they defeated him in battle, and they made this girl as a goddess, like a protector goddess, and they created this temple for her. So this temple is believed to have curative properties, like if you visit there and you worship there, you will be cured of any diseases. The unique thing about this place is that normally in Hindu temples you give flowers or leaves or fruits to the gods. You offer them these kind of things. But in this temple, you grind red chilies and offer it to the goddess.
Okay.
And yeah, that's something strange, right? Because chili and gods, how are they related?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some local superstition on chili. So if you apply the chili on the goddess's feet, you will be cured of any diseases. And that was very interesting.
Yeah.
And the temple itself was quite old. It's probably 200-300 years old. And yeah, near the temple are all these porridge stalls. So in Tamil Nadu, we have something called kur, and kur is like a porridge made of pearl millet.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very nutritious, and mostly like in the old times, babies were given porridge from this, and most agricultural laborers just drink this porridge as their main form of sustenance because it contains like a lot of nutrients. So yeah, you can get these this porridge in these really cute little matkas, and they give a plethora of side dishes: dried mango, pickled mango, fried stuff, chilies, nightshade berries, and all of that. So yeah, that's something interesting. That I mean, this art of drinking core is actually dying out in most of Tamil Nadu because it's been replaced by homogenized food like idli, dosa, uttapam, and all of that. And core is a very traditional and ancient Tamil dish, actually. So it's being the tradition is being maintained in these villages. So if you're not around there, just ask for kur and you'll be given this porridge. And I think it's worth trying out if you're in that area.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Sounds very cool. No pun intended.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, never heard of this porridge. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Probably a local thing. I don't think we live in Bangalore and been to a lot of places around in Karnataka. I haven't come across this. Probably local to Tamil Nadu or this region, perhaps, right? So that's very interesting. One other thing, interesting thing that I came across when looking up was there's an annual Kundam or a Kundam festival apparently that also is like a big draw that brings in a lot of devotees to the temple, the Masani Amman temple, and like a lot of special prayers, etc. And like you mentioned, it's very unique in that some of these, I guess, ceremonies or whatever they do are also done at graveyards, etc., as a part of the worship. So, yeah, very different and very unique, right? I think that's the interesting bit about visiting these different places. Just on our last episode, we had another unique temple where the goddess was basically a flame, right? It was in the form of a flame, and here you're saying, in this instance, it's a corpse. So just great to see the different types or forms in which gods are worshipped as well in India, right? You probably find this only in India.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. And this is in Setumadai, you said, or close to Setumadai, you said, Varsha?
Yes, very close to Setumadai. So from Pollachi, you can just take a bus that goes to Setumadai, and on the way is this temple.
Okay.
It's just like 2 or 3 kilometers away from Setumadai, and it's all uphill. So you can just get down, and you'll find many buses plying in every few minutes.
Okay, that's wonderful. Let's take a quick commercial break at this point, and we'll be right back on the other side.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh, and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.
All right, we're back, and we are discussing Varsha's trip to Pollachi along with her mom, discovering some really wonderful places in the vicinity. And what was your plan? Like, did you plan on spending more time at Setumadai, or did you hop on to the next, like the closest hamlet, or what was the plan?
Yeah, so we wanted to go to Setumadai. Now, Setumadai is very famous because it's extremely scenic. It's at the foot of the Anamalai Hills, and it's used as a filming location for many movies, many Tamil movies. So it's really famous that way. Yet, not many people know about this place. Not many people go there. I think it's a film fraternity secret, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just took a bus from there, and it was literally a straight road to Setumadai. We were there within half an hour, and so in Setumadai there are a lot of jeeps flying to Topslip, and the bus doesn't go beyond this area to Topslip. So only forest officials approved jeeps can go that side, and you can't get a jeep from Setumadai. Actually, it's you'll have to book it from Pollachi.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but these jeeps just kind of wait there if you want to like explore the areas and stuff. And yeah, and the village itself is very nice. We spent some time talking to local ladies, having tea with them. Some of them even very generously invited us to their house for lunch. I mean, they're very simple folks, but you know, it's a side of India that you don't really see in cities, right? It's a very simple, rustic, heartwarming side of India. And the area is very lush, and since it's slightly on an elevation, it gets chillier as you go into the village. So just bring along a light jacket or something. And yeah, you'll see a lot of wildlife that side. We saw porcupines. Porcupines or hedgehogs, I don't know what's the difference, but like these spiny things.
Yeah.
And we saw people trying to sell us parrots.
Oh.
And rabbits, peacocks. I mean, the area is just very exotic and it's nice. And in the distance, you can see the mountains. It's a very grand sight.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds good, yeah.
And perhaps, like you're saying, right, a lot of those beautiful sequences in the movies are shot here as well, given the setting you're mentioning, right? I came across this number. I'm not sure. Apparently, like over 1,500 films have been shot in and around the Pollachi region, right? And primarily Tamil films, obviously, but again, still quite a bit. And no wonder the setting is what is also drawing all of the film folks to come and shoot here on the cheap, if I may, rather than having to go
That's
abroad.
right.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. And just touching back on the jeeps that you mentioned that you need to book if you have to go further to top slip or the areas or the region beyond that. Is this the same forest office in Pollachi that you mentioned that you'd have to book for permits or anything like that related to that, Varsha? Is that the same place where you'd have to book for this jeep as well?
Yes, that's the same place. The forest office does everything for you, but you also have these other tour guides that can book for you, but you'll have to pay them a little extra
I
for the
see.
service charge.
Okay, wonderful. Cool. Where next to? So you've spent some time at Setumadai, gone around, like interacted with the locals there, spent some time there. Was the plan to head further ahead towards Top Slip, or is this for another day?
Actually, we planned to go to Top Slip, but when we went, the weather wasn't so good, so we were advised to return back. So instead, from there, the next day we went to Aliyar Dam,
Okay.
Valparai Aliyar. So Valparai is one of the hill stations there, and it's just like Ooty, but not as crowded or expensive. And it's a lot more rustic, so you won't get so much accommodation either. And there's a lot of forest and wild animals over there. So yeah, on the way to Valparai is this man-made dam called Aliyar Dam. It's a nice place for a picnic. You can do some boating, and you can just take a stroll around there. You'll have to take a bus from Pollachi, and it's about I think 1 hour to 2 hours by bus. And there's also a very famous ashram there of Vedadri Maharishi. So they teach a lot of meditation and yoga courses, and it's very popular among people looking for like a spiritual retreat. And it's close to Valparai, just a few kilometers. And it's a very nice place, actually, very scenic. And right, like if you just look up from the Aliyar Dam and the ashram, you'll see this huge towering mass. That's the Valparai mountain. And there are a lot of hiking routes. So we did go up there, and we explored the area, lots of tea estates, and you get good, amazing quality tea over there. Quality, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
not
I
sorry.
know. Giving back the pun to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so that place is nice. It's definitely worth a mention, and you can stay in Valparai. You don't need a permit to go to Valparai, but if you want to explore the forest and everything, you need a permit. And from Valparai, you can take a jeep or a bus to Top Slip. In Valparai itself, you can get jeeps to Top Slip, and Top Slip and Parambikulam Nature Reserve, which is adjacent to Top Slip. Top
Yeah.
Slip is just like this viewpoint kind of place.
Yep.
And Parambikulam is the name of the larger area. So that's where you have all these tigers, wolves, Nilgiri tar, and all these endangered animals. And you definitely need a permit there. You can camp, but again, you'll have to camp only at designated places. And there are some rustic, very, very basic and limited number of forest accommodation available. You won't get private accommodation there, so you'll have to preferably book in advance, especially during peak season being summer. And also monsoon is quite popular because the entire place just comes alive.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just quickly jumping back to Valparai also, right? I know Ooty and Kodai are perhaps the more popular cousins, I would say, in terms of hill stations in Tamil Nadu, but this is definitely a lot less commercial, like you said. So that way, crowds also are fewer, and yeah, wonderful stretches of these coffee and tea estates, right? And some of these date back to even the 1800s. Reminded me of Munnar, right? Not
Yeah.
very far from here, I guess. So very similar to that. So if someone's looking at that type of an experience around these stretches of tea and coffee plantations, Valparaiso is definitely a good spot to check out and lodge at.
Yeah, and last I heard they were starting some of these paragliding services at Valparaiso. So if you're into adventure sports, then yeah, this might be worth checking out.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
Definitely sounds like a bit, and I can only imagine the views because
Yeah.
it's already elevated. So when you get there, watching these stretches of plantations is already really a cool thing to do, but paragliding, I think it just elevates that experience even better. Right, so that's cool. And the other places you were referring to as well, the Parambikulam Wildlife Sanctuary, and I mean, all of this perhaps is within this overall the Anamalai ranges, you could say, right? Within that, it all is bound by that, the mountains, and that's why the weather is also like really, really nice, and a lot of these wildlife thrive in that type of weather. Did you spend time doing any of these safaris and things like that the wildlife sanctuaries might have to offer?
Yes, but we did not see any wildlife, unfortunately. But we did see a couple of elephants, but I'm not sure if those elephants were being rehabilitated or were they wild. I can't remember this. But yeah, we saw a few elephants, and that was it. And I did spot a Malabar squirrel, but I could not be too sure whether it was like a Malabar squirrel or just some stray dog. But when you're just winding through those roads and driving through them, you can see all these. You can catch glimpses of wildlife, and there are a lot of these monkeys and langurs that side. And and if you're lucky, you may see a tiger or a wolf.
Yeah, definitely. And like you mentioned, these hairpin bends or switchbacks, right? Valpa is, as you approach Valparaiso, that's also very famous. The number of hairpin bends it has, I don't know, like 30,
Yes.
40, whatever. We
Yes.
remember, while we did this, I think even when you approach Ooty from the Bangalore side, you have like a stretch of these, and apparently Valparaiso also has a lot of these hairpin bends, right? As you trying to approach this from that side.
Yeah, not for the weak
Yes.
stomachs.
Definitely. And it's a very thrilling ride, and the air also gets progressively cooler as you go up. I'd just like to mention that the whole Parambikulam area actually comes under Kerala,
Yeah.
but the easier way to reach there is from Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
Yeah. I think just the way it's situated, right? Pollachi is a much easier access point than coming from a point in Kerala.
Yes, that's right. Because if you're coming through Kerala, then I think the forest area is much more dense.
And I've even read up that it has the largest teak tree forest, right?
Oh yeah, I think I came across that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is something you.
Parambiculam, it has one of the largest.
yeah,
I mean, the
encountered.
sanctuary has the largest teak trees, and one of them is, I mean,
I think it's the tree itself. What is
Yeah,
it?
I-
Kanimara, or I forget the name of it now.
the sanctuary is called Kanamarai.
No,
teak
it
tree.
is a teak tree. It's one of the longest or the largest
Oh,
teak
it's like
trees
one
apparently.
single
Yeah,
tree
it is a
that- oh,
tree.
okay, I was
It's about
thinking-
40 meters tall and or close to 500 years old apparently. Kanimara, right?
Yeah,
Kanimara.
Kanimara.
So that's something interesting I came across as well. But that region, right, the Parambikulam Wildlife Reserve, an ecological or biodiversity hotspot or whatever they call it, right? It's supposed to be like really thriving with a number of these both flora and fauna, several
Yes.
thousands actually in terms of number of species.
Yeah, I think it's so dense and like with
yeah.
no human interference, it's thriving
Yes.
for no. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And watch out for snakes and leeches. They are everywhere.
Oh my god.
Surprise. Yeah, so in terms of the trip itself for you, how long was this? Like, did you stay back in this area for a little bit, Varsha, or was it more of a day trip?
So Valparaiso was a day trip, but the other areas we stayed there for a day, and then we came back to Pollachi.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, nature is actually a can be a big part of your itinerary as well, given the like how close the Anamalai ranges are and the related like wildlife sanctuary. Anamalai Tiger Reserve is also actually within this same area as well. So definitely do
Yes.
take time out, and like I said, a lot of the forest, I guess the forest department guided tours and treks and all of those are also available, but you'll have to book in advance. So just make sure you plan accordingly if you do have some of these as a part of your itinerary. Where next to from covering off the Anamalai Wildlife Sanctuary and the areas around?
We've pretty much covered everything. But if you want to go for like a day trip, then I would suggest, I mean, of course, Coimbatore and Ooty is nearby. But if you want to look at something a little more different, then I would suggest a place like Teni or even the Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve, which is about, I think, 40 to 50 kilometers north from Pollachi, and it's a very nice place. Again, it also borders Karnataka and Kerala. So yeah, that's one place you can explore. And on the east and southeast is Theni, Tirunelveli, Madurai, and all these areas. They're also quite nice to explore if you're just continuing from there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it can easily be turned into a multi-day itinerary, given that how close a lot of these places are, and a lot of them obviously nature-related, like Varsha has pointed out. A couple of other interesting things, almost like a hamlet, really, that I came across as well, Varsha, closer to Pollachi, was something called Negamam. I don't know, again, I'm probably messing up the pronunciation, the name, but Negamam is supposed to be a little village that has a number of these weavers, right? So it's very popular for these saris that they make, and a lot of these weavers, they literally have these local looms out of which they make. So if you want to get a sari fresh off the loom, Negamam is a good place to go and check out. They're popular for these, they're known as Coimbatore cotton saris apparently, but very, very popular in the area. So not very far away from Pollachi. Definitely check that out if you have time for it. And even within Pollachi, a couple of interesting eateries or these little shacks, you could almost call, that I came across. Party Bhaji Kadai, or Party's Bhaji Shop, I guess. There's a little shack within the Pollachi town, so something for you to check out for bhajis, bondas, vadas, all of these.
Oh my god, that would be like perfect, especially in that
Yeah.
like green setting.
Yeah,
Trees and
yeah.
the cool weather, and you're eating bhaji. Oh.
Or bhajis with coconut and tamarind chutneys apparently,
my God, I
and
like it with
party
the
is
tamarind
basically granny, right? Varsha, if I'm not wrong,
Yes,
in Tamil,
yes.
yeah. So party's bhaji kadai was one of that, and yeah, apparently she's been doing this for several years now, and is very, very popular among the locals. So something you could try out. And a couple of biryani places also, like I mean, obviously you would think that primarily the cuisines would be vegetarian, and they are, right, to the most part. They are vegetarian, but a lot of Tamil Nadu biryanis are also very famous, actually, and Pollachi also has its own share. Dadi Sardar Biryani. Old Muslim guy has been doing, I mean, he started this over 100 years ago, and like 2 or 3 generations, like it's been passed on, and his shack, all of these are shacks. These are not big restaurants or places like that you go and sit in a AC room and eat on biryani. It's probably not the right way of doing it also. These are little shacks where you go and eat these. Taj Biryani Hotel and Arcot Biryani Hotel, like a lot of these different biryani styles also. I don't know, Varsha, I'm sorry if you're vegetarian, I'm ruining this for you.
Not at all, not at all. I eat everything with stings,
Okay.
bugs, and flies.
That's great. But yeah, these little shops and more shacks almost, right? I would say that I came across while I was looking this up, another Chola mess. So a lot of these places are popular for local cuisines, right? Fish, Chola mess apparently for the fish it has to offer. So try all of those out if you're in the area. And even from a nature perspective, Monkey Falls on the way to Pollachi. Monkey Falls is another very popular among the locals there. And Tirumurti Hills, I looked at some pictures, Varsha, and these also looked incredible, right? The Tirumurti Hills, not too far away, about I think about 50 kilometers or so from Pollachi. And these are a set of hills, and there's a dam as well in the vicinity. So the setting is very, very picturesque, and you get to do kayaking and a lot of other water-related activities in the area. So a lot of things. I mean, one might think that it's a small little hamlet, so a weekend itinerary will do. But actually, if you want to like go beyond that, there's a lot of things in and around Pollachi to check out. Can easily be changed into a multi-day or a couple of weeks itinerary, right? If you'd like to stay here, keep Pollachi as your base and explore the areas and the region in the vicinity, it's definitely doable. But yeah, Varsha, we'd like to thank you very, very much for taking us to this really quaint little hamlet called Pollachi. My only Pollachi connection before this was we had a guest previously from, I think she was from Coimbatore if I'm not wrong, but yeah, she and her friend had done a road trip from Coimbatore to London. Like literally they drove the whole way, and yeah, her friend was from Pollachi, so that was my only Pollachi connection before this. But thank you for opening our eyes and for a lot of our listeners too, sharing your experience of Pollachi with us and taking us to this wonderful place.
Yeah, I think the next time anybody would see like a movie and it would say that shot in Tamil Nadu and you see beautiful mountains and greenery, for all you know, it might be Pollachi.
Yeah. Most likely it is Pollachi. It's either Pollachi or Tirunelveli.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Varsha, for showing us this completely different side of Tamil Nadu, which most of us end up thinking, like how Saif was saying, that Tamil Nadu is like, oh, hot Chennai, the beach and all that, but this is a completely different side of Tamil Nadu. So thank you so much for showing this to us.
My pleasure. I hope everybody gets the chance to go to this place, and please be a responsible tourist. Don't litter, don't tease wildlife, and respect local customs.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think we should be calling that out every episode for every place, but especially for places like these that are not necessarily very touristy and are definitely managed by the locals there. They don't have tourist infrastructure to take care of trash and everything you leave behind, right? So please don't do that. Not just here, anywhere you go, leave a place in a better condition than you visited. Definitely like to call that out, and thank you so much, Varsha, for mentioning that. And once again, thank you so much for taking us along with you, letting us tag along with you, exploring this little part of Tamil Nadu, and we'd eagerly look forward to your other trips in and around Tamil Nadu and the area as well. May you and your mom watch many more Tamil films and try to explore many more such hidden gems in India, in the Tamil Nadu region and around. Thank you, Varsha.
Thank you so much, Varsha.
Thank you.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
Hey everybody, it's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is in conversation with Dre Baldwin, CEO of Work on Your Game Inc. They discuss the athletic mindset and what it takes to be a great athlete. On All Things Policy, Arjun Garge speaks to Atish Paddy about fantasy sport platforms and Karnataka's online gambling ban. On the Life Manifesto, Zarina decodes the concept of emotional maturity. I wonder what emotionally mature people really do. On Nankari, Sadaf and Archit are joined by author Sudha Menon. They discuss comfort food and Sudha's upcoming book. On Say No to Drama, Chetna cuts through the drama around Instagram posts and comments. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, Intel, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Habits? Routines? How exactly do they help us get better? Well, to simplify it for you, tune in to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashton Doctor, and I'm going to be here to help you get better daily with some simple, easy to do habits that you can easily adapt to your life. So tune in to the Habit Coach podcast from Monday to Friday, because I believe that awesome lives start with awesome habits.